everyone. So there have been some questions, I think, about the size of the Illustrator file and exporting it correctly. So I'm just putting together a quick tutorial to show you how I think we should set up our files and if you want to export to JPEG or PNG, how it should be done. So let's see here. So I got Illustrator open. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to create the Illustrator file that we want with the proper size. I'm going to use a custom template. So you can see here on the right side in my startup screen, I'll hit custom. And then also here in this one, I'll hit custom and change the resolution from 1920 by 2160 to 1920 by 1080, right? So which is a typical HD, I think, HD aspect ratio pixel size. And then I'll also click landscape, the landscape orientation icon there. So I'll do a 1920 by 1080 landscape Illustrator file. And so here's the Illustrator file. And I'll go ahead and turn on the rulers just to sort of double check. You can see up here, it is 1920, about 1920, and down here, right about 1080, okay? So, you know, we can make some artwork, right? Whatever artwork we make, and, you know, something like, I'll just do something very quickly, and, you know, just do some artwork here, and maybe we change this, change the color here to something else, change the stroke to something else, just to differentiate these things. All right. And when you export, so if you have I guess some of you might be having some issues if you happen to have things off the artboard here, like so. All right, and let me just color these differently just to differentiate them as well. Let's make the blue one, and let's make, how about this one, a red one? So we've got RGB. Okay, so the white area, of course, is the Illustrator artboard. The blue and the red objects are off the artboard. Now, if I want to export a JPEG or PNG, which we may start doing instead of the PDF because of Bluescape, but I still want to try and make PDFs work. You go up to File, Export, Export As, and here we can select PNG or JPEG or many other things, TIFFs, Targas, whatever. But right now, let's just try doing PNG. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that Use Artboards is checked, because when I do that, it'll make sure that only the white artboard here exports. It won't export the blue, it won't export the red. If I don't check that, I'll show you what happens if we don't check that. We'll say export. And you can see that the preview here, it includes the blue and the red. Okay, and with the PNG, I can have a transparent background, which is good. So that's the useful thing about exporting as the PNG with the PNG. Also, with the resolution here, I don't know if some of you are running into difficulties with exporting. It's telling you that you're exporting at too high a resolution, or that the final file size is too high a resolution. I have not had any problems with that, but we should be able to get away with a screen resolution at 72 dpi, because we're just intending to display a 1920 by 1080 image on the screen. If I went to medium, or if I went to high resolution with these settings here, with this drop down here, it would just increase the pixel size of my final export image. We'll go ahead and do 72 dpi, and you'll see. I'll cancel this. Let's do it again. Do File, Export, Export As. This time will say Use Artboards, okay, and I'll hit Export. I'll go ahead and do the screen resolution, and you can see now the preview is that artboard size. It doesn't have the blue thing, it doesn't have the red thing in there, okay. We'll hit OK, and it should have done it. So let's see, I'll say Hide Illustrator, and let's see on my desktop. And there's this file. Let's do a little preview, and there it is, 1920 by 1080. It looks just like the Illustrator artboard here. right? So if let's double check that again. Let's double check some other things about that file. And what I can do is I can, in the Mac, I can check some properties here and see what's going on. I can see that the dimensions right here in the middle, if you can see that, it is 1920 by 1080, right? RGB, okay? So that's the basic way to export. We should use settings we should use for export. And so if we do some other things, I'll show you what happens. We do export, export as, and if we don't do the artboards, we'll see what that does. And let's also upsample it, right? Let's say a high resolution, 300 ppi. So it's basically going to multiply all of my my pixel resolution of 1980 by 1080 to make it 300 dpi. And so you'll see it'll export the blue with the preview here, export the blue all the way to the red thing, and also upsampled at 300 ppi, points per inch, right? Screen resolution is 72 dpi. So I hit OK, and you can see it's actually thinking because it's upsampling the image. And we will hide Illustrator. Let's check what that file that just exported looked like. Okay, so here's the new file, and you can see there it's bigger than the artboard that we had set up in Illustrator because it now has the blue and the red included in the overall this overall image. And let's check sort of the properties of that here, and you can see here that yes, it is not 1920 by 1080, but it is actually 12,043 pixels by 9,092 pixels. So let's go back to Illustrator. So again, settings to do when exporting. If you want to do PNG or JPEG, export as. Make sure that use artboards is on because we have set up the artboard to be 1920 by 1080. And when you hit export, this other setting here with this drop down, go ahead and leave it at screen, right? So it'll look like that. Okay, so hopefully that's a little helpful. Message me on Slack if there are any other questions.